Hi, I'm Laura Lowe's. I am part of the SimCenter leadership team with responsibility for education and community engagement. I'm at the University of Washington in Seattle, which sometimes looks like it does in the background. The SimCenter has three primary objectives with respect to ECE activities. The first is to provide the natural hazards community, you, with knowledge of what we're doing, what our software products are, what the training opportunities are, ongoing software development and working group activities, and mechanisms for engaging with the SimCenter. The second is to educate natural hazard researchers, and in particular, those graduate students, postdocs, staff who are in the trenches doing the work so that they have the knowledge and skills they need to most effectively use and extend SimCenter software products. And finally, engage researchers in working group activities so that you all can drive software development to best meet the needs of the community, you. So I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about all of those. In terms of community outreach, as I said, we really want you to know what we're doing. With the renewal, we've instituted a biennial meeting for SimCenter researchers, contributors, users, potential users, anybody who's interested. It'll provide information about what the SimCenter has been doing, the products we've been producing, provide and opportunities I have identified for applying and extending our software products, as well as showcase products that are being used by the research community, you. So keep that in mind as you start seeing information about this meeting that'll be in October of this year. Every year we participate in the NERI Summer Institute. That's an NSF or NERI NCO organized activity that is really intended for junior faculty and others, just to provide an introduction to the SimCenter and opportunities for integrating SimCenter software, software development and collaboration into proposals. But it is also an opportunity for others just, again, to get a very basic introduction to the facility. And finally, we have webinars on a regular basis that provide information about new simulation capabilities, as well as how SimCenter software is being applied in practice to advance research. If you are doing something that is, if you're doing research that's using SimCenter products and you want to give one of our webinars, get in touch with us, let us know. Happy to showcase work that's being done in the community. Our educational program is extensive. As somebody noted in the questions, this is sophisticated software, and we need everybody, or we want to educate people so that they can make the most advantage of, or take the most advantage of what we're producing. We have a programming boot camp that we run regularly. It focuses on providing programming skills in Python, C, C++. Provides the skills researchers need to adapt and modify SimCenter software to best meet research needs. Next one's in early July 2022. We have tool training workshops that provide researchers with knowledge of theories and algorithms that are embedded in the software, as well as best practices for using it. So understanding the software we're producing and how you might use it, early July 2022. And relatively recently, we've started developing out tool training modules for classrooms. These are intended for graduate students. And the idea is that we've done some work to develop these modules. An instructor could take a module into the classroom, use it all on their own, or engage with us. We'd be happy to do a Zoom presentation by one of our research staff about how the software is used, how it's developed, what the theories are. Anyway, if that sounds interesting to you, you're teaching a class that could use QuoFem, R2D, etc., contact us. We'd love to work with you on further developing those modules. Oh, all of the videos from previous boot camps and tool training are on our website if you want to take a look at those now. Additional, this year, we're working in collaboration with Design Safe to launch a hackathon that we intend to do every year. It'll focus on developing a deep understanding of SimCenter regional simulation workflows, primarily intended for graduate students and postdocs. Look for more information. The plan is for that to be late July 2022. And regularly, we have webinars for researchers that provide in-depth discussion of algorithms, models, techniques that are embedded in SimCenter software, best practices for software use. And those are typically triggered by new releases of our software. Finally, on Fridays, we have live expert tips on Friday afternoon. Great way to spend a Friday afternoon. Each week features a different tool, and so you can sign up and do all of them or just do the ones that are particularly of interest to you. Those are led by a development team, informal Q&A about the software. Community engagement. Providing opportunities for really substantial engagement and collaboration with SimCenter staff. We have a SimCenter residency program where researchers are invited to spend time at the UC Berkeley Richmond Field Station, great place to be, and work alongside our SimCenter staff. So if that sounds interesting to you, get in touch with us to talk about details. And then finally, community participation in working groups. So in a few minutes, we're going to split out into working groups and you'll have your first introduction to the working group, or maybe the second. But we really do want community participation so that we can make sure that the software development activities really do provide tools and features that will enable you all to advance your research. Finally, I would encourage you to watch for our emails and posts and Twitter feed, etc. Go to our website to learn about new activities. Here's some upcoming events. You can see today's meeting, live expert tips on the 28th, Summer Institute applications are due. And with that, I think I will hand off to the next person. I guess one last thing is, if you have any questions or are thinking of opportunities, just get in touch with us.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Leave that slide up just a second. So I'm going to say a little bit about support that we provide, but I will mention that if you see on this webpage snapshot, there's a button about join the community, and that'll allow you to register for the newsletter. But also it takes you to a link also where a page where there's a button you can go to our user forum, which is a great place to ask questions and get responses about basically anything. So that's another way to kind of interact with us. And that if you do it there, then everybody benefits from the response to your question or queries. So that's a nice thing. So, but just in terms a little bit more about interacting and how you can sort of benefit from what we have this fairly extensive software development staff, and they do the development that our faculty experts guide them on, but they're also there and available to help you to utilize the software and also to modify the software for your own research goals. So if you have a goal, you're trying to achieve something and the software isn't set up to do that directly, that staff has time also set aside for helping users. So you can post questions to the user forum and start to interact with the people that are actually really writing the software. So that's something that you should be aware of. And of course, if you come for the residency program, then you can be sitting next to them and you can really accelerate what you're trying to do. The other type of support we provide is for PIs. So if you're another university and you're a faculty member and you're writing a grant and you think that the SimCenter software can help the research that you're proposing, you can contact us and we can work out a plan by which we can collaborate together, and then we can issue you a letter of support for your grant proposal. So that's another sort of way you can interact with us. And typically people that contact the associate director of operations, Sir Matt Shuttler, and he'll inform you about the various elements that we need to get from you to develop a working plan for collaboration. So we don't just issue letters randomly. We really want to see that there's a potential for a nice collaboration between the center and your research group. Okay, so that was just a few words I wanted to say on that topic. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Greg. He's going to introduce the working groups, and we'll pause again for Q&A a little bit, and then we'll go to the breakouts. So Greg, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. And let's see, is my slide being shared?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we do want to go into smaller groups to hear from you, and we thought today it would be useful to divide up into these working groups that we have. So I just wanted to briefly introduce those, say a few things about that. So we have 6 working groups. The first one here is focused on regional inventory development. Kenichi Soga from UC Berkeley is leading this one. And this is the one that within this is really encompasses some of the AI tools that I mentioned before for kind of identifying features of buildings in the inventory. But this group goes beyond that just to look at more how we structure the inventories in general. Next one is the linkages. Sanjay said one of our priorities is to kind of engage with the socioeconomic thinking about recovery. So Rachel Davison from University of Delaware will be leading that group, is leading that group. And then I'm leading the group on looking at earthquakes, regional, but also fully, we all touch on all the different hazards in all these working groups, but specifically things that are related to kind of earthquake effects on structures, both kind of individually and then building out to regionally. Tracy Kajewski-Correa is likewise leading the working group looking at hurricane and tsunami. And I should note that Tracy has been the lead on putting together, or really leading the development of the 2 test beds that we have on looking at hurricanes that I had mentioned earlier. Hassan Kareen, University of Notre Dame, I think folks know him, is kind of leading the group that's really focusing on the effort on looking at the computational fluid dynamics for looking at kind of simulating fluid flows and wind flows on buildings and other structures. And finally, underlying this all is uncertainty quantification, which kind of propagates through all of these working groups, but in particular, Alex Taflanidis has been leading kind of the effort of kind of identifying and pulling together different tools that have been built into the program QuoFam, but also as we go forward over the next 4 years to really propagate out, and in particular to translate those UQ tools and that formal methodology and consistency into the regional simulations. So those are our 6 working groups. When we break in a few minutes, you'll be assigned, as we said earlier, based on what your preference was. If you end up in a working group and you'd rather be somewhere else, if you return to the main room, Matt Schottler will reassign you to wherever you'd like to go. Just I'd like to relate how those working groups, kind of which are listed, same ones are listed here on the side, kind of relate to what Sanjay described as our proposal objectives. And these are the things that we're kind of going to focus on in the next 4 years that we saw based on the things we've developed to date. We really need to look at, and again, those are interfacing with various types of hazards, looking at local scale modeling, looking at the regional simulation and the socioeconomic. And so you can see loosely how the different working groups that are shown here kind of map into those priorities for the next 4 years. And then also to the right part of this slide is showing how the different working groups map into or kind of touch upon the different software tools that I introduced earlier today. And next, if we think about wanted to clarify what's the role of these working groups. Well, they really are charged with helping us in 3 ways. One is to help guide the continuing software development, identifying features that are needed, and should point out too that we're not a center in the classical sense of being a research center. We really have to draw research tools and components from the community. So these working groups are key in terms of knowing the community in the different areas that I described and identifying models that are out there that we could pull into our workflow chain. So it's guiding the software development. The second one, and that's really the focus of today, is to really engage users, to get to help faculty, postdocs, graduate students use our software, use it both in teachings and graduate courses in particular, but also then into their research. And finally, the working groups are also helping to guide the education and outreach. So it's kind of the parallel or the complement to the software development is really helping us identify where we need webinars and tool training and so forth to make the tools, accessible and to be used by others. So finally, we'll break in a minute to go to the different working groups. And I think within each working group, what you'll hear is a little bit of an overview from the working group leader on the group's thinking and efforts to engage researchers. So a bit more information, but mainly to spend most of the time, and we don't have too much time, it's 45 minutes we've allocated, really to solicit your thoughts on kind of what you've heard today, both generally, but also specific to the working group topic. And in particular, we're really interested in hearing from researchers who are either currently using the SimCenter tools or on the verge of using them, how they'd like to use them to really start to forge that connection. And finally, as Sanjay mentioned earlier, we really view this as just the beginning of the discussion. And to quote from one of the great film lines of all history from Casablanca, it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship with you. So with that, I think, Sanjay, we have a few minutes for some Q&A before we go to the breakouts, right?